I want to start with Corey Perry. Do you think it's a good fit for the Maple Leafs? What are you hearing on that front?
I don't know if he's a good fit for the Maple Leafs. I mean, look, I think Corey Perry's let me walk that back. I think Corey Perry's a good fit for almost every team. I don't think you can get enough Corey Perrys. And I did want to offer one bit of clarification if I could. Corey Perry wasn't cleared yesterday to return. That part is inaccurate. He has never been barred from playing in the NHL. He was eligible immediately the day that his contract was terminated with the Chicago Blackhawks to step right into an NHL lineup. Will he return to the league this season? I have zero doubt. I had calls from 3 NHL GMs the week that he was suspended by the Blackhawks asking, what do you know? What did he do? How bad is it? And then invariably, the last question in the conversation was, what do you think the blowback would be like if I signed this guy? So teams were trying then. This is a guy that was on pace for 50 plus points, an absolute gamer, a guy who loves the game, can't get enough of it, and will now likely sign for league min to chase another Stanley Cup after going to 3 consecutive cup finals. I mean, stuff like that doesn't happen by accident. So I would take Corey Perry in a heartbeat.
Why don't you think with all the interest? I mean, I think we're kind of fooling ourselves if we think we're just going to be the only ones that want him on the roster. Like you say, the Toronto Maple Leafs, there's going to be other suitors. Do you not think that'll just boost the value in the number? Like, why is it automatically league min? I understand what he went through, but if more than one organization wants him and they have cap room, why wouldn't that go up to $1 million or something like that?
Yeah, I mean, it could. I don't think it's money driven for him. I think, you know, some people were saying the other day, oh, he took as much money as he could to go to Chicago. No, he didn't. They just had more money to offer because they also needed to get to the salary cap floor. But leaving Tampa, Corey Perry and his son Griffin have a really close relationship. He's just a little guy. I think he's 6 or 7 years old, but a hockey super fan. And I wrote a couple stories about, Griff sort of being Corey Perry's good luck charm. And when they were leaving Tampa, he was, really upset. Like, Dad, like, do you think this means, you're not going to play with Steven Stamkos anymore? But who's it going to be? They were putting together some of the, the wish lists of the best players in the league. Leon Draisaitl, he loves Draisaitl, or would it be Austin Matthews or whoever? And he's like, Dad, you got to go play with Connor Bedard. So not saying that's how he makes his decisions, but he really wanted to spend some time around Connor Bedard and be a guy that could help mentor him. And obviously that didn't really quite work out for the Blackhawks. It backfired in that sense that they had to say goodbye, but it wasn't a chase for money and the $4 million that brought him there. He's made, $100 million in his career. He wants to win. And so if it's at 775 or if it's at $1 million or if it's at $1.5 million, it's not really going to matter one way or the other. He's going to pick the best fit for him. And I think you also probably, not to say that he won't go out west, but he spends the bulk of his time living in London. So, that's not really all that far down the road from the Leafs. It's not really all that far down the road from the Detroit Red Wings. Wherever you want to, pick the spot, I think those are some intriguing, places to kind of start with from an ideation perspective.
Do you get the indication as to when he's going to make a decision? Like, has he been skating consistently since everything went down, or?
Knowing Corey Perry, there's almost zero chance that he spent any time off the ice. I would say that decision-wise, I don't think it's front burner. My guess is the information that came out yesterday, which was a meeting for Gary Bettman that he asked for specifically, was put out there as a way to take the temperature of the marketplace of, hey, does this produce teams starting to call again? How do fan bases and social media react? This was a test balloon, a trial balloon that was dropped to basically gauge some of that, to say, when is the right time to come back? Because again, he's one of those guys that you're going to have to pry him out of the game kicking and screaming.
Well, Frank, it worked because it's blowing up Toronto already, right, Rosie? We're seeing storylines already today.
Yeah, and I mean, nothing's even happened, but say they sign him tomorrow, obviously something happened that was of low character. You don't gas his contract, and we don't know what that is. So I think that's in his favor for sure. But say they do sign him, what kind of blowback could you expect? And would that just fizzle out as soon as he puts the uniform on and plays a game?
I mean, we live in 2024 in a social media world where people are both, insanely sensitive and they feign outrage like nobody's business. So someone somewhere in some corner sucking their thumb is going to be upset. I think the truth is that depending on which team you play for and work for, there's different rules for different people. And I'm not saying that Corey Perry didn't cross a line or anything like that. I don't know the full story, all the details, just sort of, various innuendo that's been out there. And I think the best way for me to explain how the rest of the league feels in hearing some of the stories is that they basically think the Chicago Blackhawks, given what they've been through with the Kyle Beach scandal, that they have a different level of sensitivity to anything that might happen in the workplace, and that they're going to react to make sure that they're on the quote unquote correct side of that, and potentially also overreact. So again, Corey Perry in his statement acknowledged that something happened, acknowledged that it was alcohol fueled, and acknowledged that he's been dealing with some mental health and alcohol abuse issues that he's been working through. Is he, off scot-free? No. I mean, his career and reputation has certainly taken a huge damaging hit here. But moving forward, my guess is that whatever sort of issue that a fan base has, first off, you should look yourself in the mirror because no one's perfect. And second, he's come out and owned it. He didn't break any laws. Everyone's acknowledged that he didn't break any laws. Like, let's move on and have him play.
Yeah.
So we'll see what happens here over the coming weeks, but certainly a busy time here in Leafs Nation. A extension for Willie Nylander. I've seen you on our various platforms give your opinion. I'd love to hear your opinion on this show. What do you think of it?
I think it's expensive. I think that's the easiest way to explain it. I think the Toronto Maple Leafs felt like in some ways they were kind of, I don't want to say backed into a corner, but I feel like with the special season that he's had, with the continued growth that we've seen in his game, with the potential to lose him for nothing, that they felt this was the best alternative given all the things that were on the table. I think they probably felt market wise like there were a couple teams out there that would be willing to pay Nylander even more in the $12+ million range. I'm little different in that, like, I don't mind playing hardball. And I'd say if you really want to leave here what's been a really good fit and you clearly like it here over an extra $500,000 or $1 million or whatever it ends up being, like, those figures aren't going to change your life in any meaningful way, whether you make 80, 85 or $92 million. Like, you're still an extraordinarily wealthy human being. So you might want to just find the best fit for you and exactly what that looks like. Unfortunately, with the way that these Leaf players have one-upped each other consistently, that was never really on the table to be a thing. And so that part I think hurts. But in terms of how the Leafs build this out from here, the blueprint is there. I mean, essentially what you're doing is handing William Nylander all $4.5 million of your cap increase this summer. You've got some flexibility with the Bertuzzi, Domi, and Brody deals. And you basically need to get through one season where you're gritting your teeth with John Tavares at $11 million before you can convince him to take a hometown discount and then rejig your cap after that. So it's the path is there for this to be mostly seamless. I still think at the end of the day, you've paid absolute market price or just thereabouts for a guy that, as good as he's been, this is it. This is the ceiling. Like, it's never going to get better than this for William Nylander. And it's pretty damn good. Like, I'm not mistaking that.
Yeah.
But on top of that, you're making a really big commitment here. So that's, there's no surplus value that you're getting in Nylander over the next number of years.
And based on that contract, do you lately they've allowed Mitch Marner's no trade to kick in? Do you think that this just basically solidifies that they are running it back with the core four? They're keeping them as their base, the majority of their cap, or do you think how much of a haircut Tavares could take would basically alleviate all the problems that this contract and Marner's could cause?
From a pure financial perspective, I think the increasing cap plus whatever hometown discount Tavares takes, like let's ballpark him at, and I don't know how generous John Tavares wants to be, but let's say he goes from 11 million to 6. Then you add in 2 years from now, another $4.5 or $5 million in an increase. And you can see how this, from a financial perspective can be accomplished and still find a way to ice a really competitive roster elsewhere in your lineup. I think my bigger question, and so to take a step back, to answer your question, yes, I do think this more or less solidifies that this is the path that they'd like to go down. My only caveat to add to that is let's see what happens in the playoffs again.
Yeah.
If you have another disastrous playoff run, I think you'd have to explore moving Mitch Marner. I don't given his playoff failures and how he doesn't seem to be able to overcome it. That's what I'd be looking at and saying, we can spend this, if it wasn't going to be for Nylander and take his money and say, we're going to get 3 good players, with this cash, you have to do it with someone at some point, even with whatever's coming with Tavares. So not set in stone, nothing ever is, but I think in a perfect world, that's sort of where the Leafs heads are at in terms of planning.
Frank, I guess my concern is the full no movement clause. Like Marner just seems like the type like he's going to be in Toronto and that's where he's going to be until the duration of this contract. But do you think there's some pressure points they can put on the player if they have to make that type of decision?
I mean, all you really have to say, Rosie's been there. I think these no move clauses and no trade clauses there's so much made of it that it's bullshit. All you have to do is tell the player, we don't want you. No one really wants to be in a place that they're not wanted. I don't care if it's, whatever it is, your marriage, a club team, whatever you want, your golf, your country club, you want to be at a place that you're wanted. And if that's your team and your livelihood, no one wants to be in a miserable situation. And by the way, who's to say that Mitch Marner, given all that he's been through, doesn't thrive more somewhere else where there's not a constant light shining on you and the pressure of this fan base being jammed up your arse on a daily basis.
And plus that no move just allows a guy to be part of the process if there is a trade. Okay, give me your top 7 teams and we'll start there. And I do not want to go to this place and I will not go to that. Okay, well then you're not, you have some precedence over your own future as far as I won't lift my no move if you make a deal with this team, and you're able to do that. So that, I think a lot of the reason that's why that happens. If things go really south, at least I'm not completely hamstrung.
Well, and I think that's a great point. And there's also sort of de facto no trade clauses that people have, even if he didn't, let's say he didn't have that on paper. All he has to do from a trade perspective is have his agent indicate, hey, I won't re-sign here if you trade me. Look at Cutter Gauthier. The Flyers only talked to 18 to 20 teams to try and gauge the market because they knew that there were 13 to, however many left, 10 that he simply just wasn't willing to go to. So they could only really talk to those 18 to 20. And that's sort of how the game works.
Frank, we'll leave on this note. So you recently updated your trade targets board. Who are some players you think could make sense for the Leafs? Anything you're hearing on the trade front? I know we're still a ways out from March 8th here.
I think they've got a few things to figure out. By the way, I think Ilya Samsonov is expected to address the media this morning or already did. I'm curious to see what his quotes are. I'm curious to see he's probably likely to play a game this weekend if that's the path they go down with the back-to-backs. I think that's a huge part from a trade perspective in figuring out where they go next. The first thing was getting Nylander done, locking in his number. Let's say they want to go out and trade for a defenseman that has term. Well, now you can do that with more cost certainty that you've achieved. The next thing is, well, what's the total pool of dollars that we have to spend if we wanted to do that? And I think they have to get an answer from Samsonov. Can he play? Can he not? Can we rehab this game? And if not, are we cutting bait or are we just going to allow him to languish with the Marlies? And I think that's a really significant thing over the next 2 weeks. The Leafs have some time. I think they should be judicious and check all the boxes that they have available to them so that they're not in a spot where if they make a seismic or significant trade, that it's for a rental, that they can take their time and maybe find a defenseman out there that really fits for the longer haul, that kills a couple birds with one stone in terms of making Brad Treliving's job and life a bit easier, putting this roster together heading into the summer.
Make sure to check out more of our content right here on the Leafs Nation YouTube page. We got long form interviews, we got clips, we got epic rants by Jay Rosehill. We simply have it all. And don't forget, you can find out much more at theleafsnation.com. Thanks so much for watching.